What's going on, it's the RapNerd, and with the release of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the DCEU is finally over with. So I've been waiting to do my ranking video because I wanted to do a marathon of all of the movies, and I finally finished that. So like I just said, we're here to rank the DCEU films. Disclaimer, my list is not slam dunk on yours. I'm not saying you're wrong. This is just my list and how I feel. It's a combination of quality and what I enjoy most is what makes this list up. So I'm just putting that out there now, and I'll explain each entry as I get to it. So without further ado, let's get it popping. At number 16 is a film that I have left off of every DCEU ranking list in the past, but since the DCEU is over, this is part of the history, and what made this universe what it was is Justice League, aka Justice League 2017. Now, this movie is at the bottom because of everything it represents. It's studio versus artist not respecting the vision or a visionary and thinking that you can just right the ship in the middle of steering the ship, knowing that that's the wrong way to do it. This movie is an abomination in so many different ways, from what they did to Zack Snyder, going through a tragedy, puts this movie down to the bottom. And honestly, what this film should have been is not Justice League. I think everybody that they tried to call should have been like, no, I'm not coming in here to do that because of what just happened. Whedon should have turned this down and been like, nah, I'm a man of actual people, and I'm not going to do this because of what this guy's going through. So this movie is just a representation of just an assault on what artistry is. So at number 16 is terrible ass Justice League. Number 15, I have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. This movie is a huge step down from the first Shazam. You know, I already really enjoyed the first one, but this movie made me enjoy that one even more. I think this film opted for standard generic blockbuster instead of doing what made the first movie special, and that's honing in on the relationships of the younger versions of Shazam. They did a whole lot of swapping of characters for going for the adult versions, and I think it just lost a bit of its wholesome cuteness. Even with the parents, you barely see them in the film. There's some cool action, there's some really dope shots, and humor works in spaces, but the biggest factor here is Zachary Levi. Like, he's quite annoying in this movie, and you don't see a lot of Billy, so it's just him hamming it up the whole way. He just kind of makes the movie a bit insufferable for me. One note, forgettable villains. And I'm just gonna stop here because I actually really like the director, David F. Sandberg, so I don't want to disrespect him or the crew, but this movie just didn't work out for me at all. I just think it's like extremely generic. So at number 15 is Shazam and Fury of the Gods. Number 14 is Wonder Woman 84. The thing about this film, right, is I could see what Patty was going for, because I always look at this film as like she was trying to make a movie that felt like it was made in the 80s with the aesthetic and all of that, and I do appreciate her for that because I think she nailed that part. I think the color and the higher saturation fits that. Even the stunt work, you know, it's kind of hokey and you could tell that she's on wires, but I definitely see, again, she was going with the 80s. The idea of Steve Trevor inhabiting some guy's body is also weird. I also think Cheetah was very underused. I did like her design, but man, and I think Max Lord, while Pedro did do his thing, I do like how he performed this character a lot. Like, he's one of the redeeming factors in this film. I like what he did, but I just don't think that he was needed. I don't know. This movie feels like a Saturday morning cartoon in a really bad way. You know, the wishing stone, and it just, a lot of it just didn't work. It was a kind of a mess when it comes to where the movie started and where it went. They wasted that golden armor suit, which I thought was fire, even though it does look dope. There's a lot of shot when she's flying. The fight sequences at the end, like her and Cheetah should have been way bigger of a fight, and it just really got toned down, especially seeing how the other action was handled. So this movie, I've grown to like it more, but it is what it is. I think the ball was dropped a lot, but I do have a soft spot for it because my daughter likes it. Every time I watch it, she is copying it and jumping around, acting like Wonder Woman. They were going with the Christopher Reeve thing, and even the old Wonder Woman, how it was more whimsical. So I understand what they were going for, but it just wasn't executed to really flesh that idea out. So at number 14 is Wonder Woman 84. At number 13 is Black Adam. This is another movie that I feel like is pretty generic. You know, it's the standard superhero stuff in regards to like where it goes, the character types, the story, it all is just what we've seen before, especially to be in 2022, I believe is when it dropped. Yeah, 2022. It was just more of the same. And when I initially watched it, I was not like moved at all. I remember being in theaters just like, this is like extremely generic. But over time, I've kind of grown and kind of switched my thinking last year, as a matter of fact, which I'll get into in another video. When I just sat down and watched the movie for what it was and took the expectations off, I actually enjoyed it. It's a standard action adventure film. It has some great action. It reminds me a lot of X-Men First Class. Not as good at all, but it has that origin story group nature, kind of like that, where it's like you don't really know the origin of all the characters. You just kind of presented them as a collective, and you kind of get pieces and bits of their story. So, like that aspect, I thought Hawkman was fucking cool, man. Like his design and just, I already am a huge fan of Aldous. I think he's just a dope dude. So him playing Hawkman was fire. Pierce Brunson being Dr. Fate, fire. The visuals, fire regardless. So when I think about the good of the movie, the film was very entertaining, and that's why I kind of grown to like it even more. And I even like what The Rock was trying to do with bringing Henry Cavill back and being a servant of the people. So just all of those aspects make me enjoy the movie more. But all in all, quality-wise, it's pretty generic, just a standard superhero movie. So at number 13, I have Black Adam. At number 12, I have Blue Beetle. And kind of the same with Black Adam. I feel like this movie is yet another one that's pretty generic to me. It hits all of the beats that you would expect from an origin superhero movie, like literally every single one. Jaime has this realization of power and responsibility. It is like run of the mill. But I do like the cultural aspects of this film. Like it takes it up a notch because I like the inclusion of the culture. Again, there are things in here that I watch and kind of identify, just having friends who are Latino, who I've been around, and just being cultured myself, if you will. So I like to watch this movie just for that alone. And I think the suit is fire. The suit is dope. The action sequences are really good. The choreography is super good. Especially my favorite scene is that like hallway fight when that Cypress Hill's playing. Love that. But all in all, I do think it's pretty standard as far as where it goes, and it doesn't really do much of anything different. So I do like it, but it is what it is. And number 11 is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now the movie's a mess, honestly. It's a kitchen sink of a movie, but I can't lie, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I liked it a lot. The action sequences are great. The VFX look really, really good. The suit is dope. Seeing Black Manta and Aquaman battle in their classic suits, seeing the Dead King, the journey of it all. The adventure and action part to me are really good. And I think from that aspect, they do meet the first one, but everything else, no. But it did enough to have me surprised. And I went in here with like low level, like thinking it's going to be trash. And maybe that could be why I came out and liking it a whole lot. I think it's goofier than the first one in spots, but I like the real world aspect of it, with Arthur tussling with being a king and trying to still lead Atlantis into trusting the surface. All in all, it felt like opening a comic book to me, honestly. It felt like the New 52, I believe, is it that one or Rebirth? One of the two, the Drowning comic is what it felt like. Again, I enjoyed the movie for what it was, especially more than those before, because it still gave me what I wanted and expected from Aquaman in this film, and that to me made it entertaining and work for me. So at number 11 is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. At number 10 is the Suicide Squad. Technically, everything in this movie works. You know, the characters, the character moments. It's got great action. It's got beautiful cinematography. It has a slamming soundtrack, as James Gunn usually does. He delivered a really good comic book movie, but this one is it's just not for me. This I'll say that this movie is just not for me. I don't really like the crude humor at all, and I think that that's the biggest deterrent for this movie for me. It's hard to watch because that style of comedy is omnipresent throughout the whole movie. There are really any moments that it's not trying to be humorous, and the moments that we do get that aren't humorless, like the Rick Flag versus Peacemaker fight, like that tone and what he did with that right there in the third act, like that whole shit right there works for me, and I love that. But it's like everything else with just the hammering of his style of humor just does not work for me and being rated R. This movie is just not for me, but I can also recognize that it is a very well-made comic book movie that has not many technical flaws. So number 10, I have the Suicide Squad. At number 9, I have the Flash. For the most part, I really enjoyed this movie. The first 2 acts I feel are very, very strong. I really like how Ezra's performance was depicting both Barrys, because I feel like that's not an easy thing to do, to bounce off of yourself in the same scene. And so I liked that. I liked bringing back Keaton, seeing him be Batman again. It literally made me think like, okay, maybe Walter Hamada was onto something bringing him back, because the way he was in this movie, I really, really dug. Loved the inclusion of Supergirl for the little moments that she was on screen. Really, really dope. And the movie has a lot of heart, honestly. It hits for the emotional beats, especially the stuff with Barry's parents really works. Even with the opening, with the Justice League opening, having Flash save the children, having Batfleck chase down these goons, that was so dope to see in theaters. I was literally watching like, oh, they might be cooking with this movie. But the thing that takes this movie down for me personally is the third act. I don't like any of that. I think it was a real problem to try and revisit Man of Steel, especially if you're not gonna put the money in the VFX to make it look as good as Man of Steel. It felt really plain being on this deserted place. I understand why they did it to lower casualties, but it just does not work. And the CGI in that scene in particular, I could kind of ignore it, prior, but that third act, that CGI is really bad, honestly. It looks like it all was generated with AI. There are moments when Flash is talking and his jaw is like extending wider than what a natural jaw can do, and it's just weird. I don't like any of that. It just all kind of collapses for me in the third act. The part that I did like was him going back to speak to his mom for the last time. But other than that, I didn't like the cameos, and I feel like ending it with his tooth falling out and George Clooney in a post-credit scene of Aquaman being drunk. I'm just like, oh, come on. But first 2 acts are like fire to me, so that's why I have it so high. And number 8 is Shazam. This movie is such a gem of a film. Feeling like one of those 80s movies like the Goonies mixed with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It has that level of heart and that wholesomeness about it. And taking place during Christmas, I mean, that just is a great additive and bonus to it. I still have a few issues with Zachary Levi's portrayal of Billy not being at all like Billy, because they're supposed to be the same person, or you're supposed to see the same person in both characters, and you really don't see that here. But it's still great to have the screen time split between Asher and Zach, because it kind of gives some levity against Zach. And then Zachary Levi's performance here wasn't as obnoxious as Fury of the Gods. He was literally a fish out of water trying to figure things out, and he played to that well, so it wasn't as like hammed up. And I enjoy it for what it is, especially the villain, Dr. Sylvana, and the 7 Sins being these monstrous, unique creatures that just go balls out, and the unexpected violence in the film. So all that to say, Shazam is one of my favorites, and that's why I have it at number 8. Now, number 7, I'm gonna get scoffed at, but I don't care. Like I said, this is the end of an era, so I'm gonna say how I feel, and what I want is Suicide Squad 2016, directed by David Ayer and Warner Brothers. Now, this movie is a mess. It's clear. I mean, you can tell by the way the cuts happen, and anytime that it cuts from a flashback and the colors are there, you can tell like that scene was actually meant to be in the movie. Dialogue is hammy as hell. I mean, him saying that, what are we, some sort of Suicide Squad, is like, what? There's a scene where Rick Flag is talking to the Deadshot in the plane where he's like, I'm a soldier. When the shooting starts, you're gonna turn and run. It's things like that that are just kind of like, what? But then it's also things like Will Smith saying, yo, you don't hear me? You one of them deaf hoes, huh? It is what it is. This movie's just like fun as hell for me personally. I like the way it looks. It's shot beautifully. Some really great looking images in here. Love the costume design. Even though the soundtrack was not what it was supposed to be, I like the soundtrack a lot. To me, this feels like a movie for misfits, with the choice of soundtrack they use, having like Eminem playing, having Rick Ross in the back playing, having Sympathy for the Devil in certain sequences. I liked it all. And I know people hate Jared Leto's Joker, but I really enjoy his Joker. To me, he is a crazy modern day version of Joker that is the equivalent to Batfleck, which, seeing him in this movie just feels like a DC encyclopedia. Like, you can get all these different pieces of the world here, and I just have such an entertaining time with it. Like the action, I like the deeper dive moments within the film. You definitely see Ayer trying to say a few things from his cut in the movie. I like all of the characters, man. Will Smith is one of my goats, so how am I not gonna like this movie? Will Smith is a shining star in the film with his one-liners, his quips, his action, all of that stuff, man. So I can definitely understand why somebody would disagree with this, but when it comes to just pure enjoyment and what I rewatched the most, I rewatched this one more than all of the movies that I mentioned before. So for me, that means something. And I can also acknowledge that it's not the best and it's a mess, but goddamn, is it fun. So at number 7 is Suicide Squad. So at number 6 is Birds of Prey, which shouldn't be a shocker since I have Suicide Squad before it. I feel like this is an olive branch of that movie, and Kathy Yan saw that film and kind of took the DNA of that to create something around it instead of trying to rebuild a movie into that, you know what I mean? So it's pretty hard. I'm sounding crazy, but if you understand what I mean, you understand what I mean. I love this film. When it came out, I saw it like 4 times. I just like how street level it is. I've said it time and time again. It feels like a day in the life of Harley Quinn in Gotham. I like seeing the normalcy of Gotham in this film, how you go to these different places, nightclubs, you know, shopping markets, like making Gotham seem like a normal place. It's just got terrible people in it. The action sequences are pretty damn dope. Some of the best in the entire DCEU. Love the third act with all of that action, the chase, the fun house. Roman Sionis was hilariously dope and dripped out too, boy. Them suits, whew. But I really liked his character. Loved Black Canary, loved Huntress, loved Montoya, and I love their bickering and how they aren't really a team, but kind of are a team and have to be. So it's a street level, low threat mafia action flick that just has some of the best cinematography of the DCEU, and I like all of the things pumped into the movie. A lot of people have beef with Sandra Kane. I don't really care. I've never been like a huge fan of that character, so her being dumbed down to that level didn't really bother me at all. So all in all, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, and that's why I have it at number 6. At number 5 is Wonder Woman. I think this is like the origin story of Wonder Woman films. Not sure if it's can ever be outdone for real, just because of what it stands for and how it's crafted with so much care and elegance and the presentation of her origin. The action slaps, the cinematography is mind-blowing, the score works to a T. I think this is Gal Gadot's best version of Wonder Woman that she's done. And honestly, I don't really have that many issues with the movie. I know I've seen a lot of people not like the third act, but I thought it was pretty riveting with the way the action was handled, how she runs into Ares, and yes, she's a big gray villain, but I think the action still works. I love the fish out of water approach with Diana leaving the mascara and all these things that she discovers. The movie is so wholesome, but yet so emotionally driven, violent, and powerful all in one. And I think many people would agree how great this film is. So at number 5 is Wonder Woman. At number 4 is Aquaman. Wonder Woman is technically a better movie than this, but Aquaman was just such an entertaining journey of a movie for me. From start to finish, I've said it mad times too, that it feels like the Mummy and Star Wars came together and had a baby, and here you have Aquaman. It's the first time that we've dove deep underwater in live action, and one just snapped with the visuals. Almost every frame of this movie is a painting. The action is ridiculous. From one-on-one fights to Aquaman fighting a bunch of goons to an all-out underwater sea battle with creatures flying, sharks with lasers, people with tridents and swords, this different makeup that just build this world out like something we've never seen before. It's a bit cheesy in places. The humor doesn't always work, and it did not take the movie down. That suit is beautiful. It has its emotional moments. Jason is totally believable in the role. So that also adds to what makes this film so great to me. So at number 4, I have Aquaman. So at number 3, I have Man of Steel. This to me is my favorite Superman, the best Superman movie I've ever seen. Breaking Clark down and making him the most human he has ever been. Changed my life, period. This movie changed my life with just opening me up to cinema. I've said this mad times, but cinematography is mind-blowing. The action sequences, like, good luck getting something like this level with a Superman film. know how that's going to be done. But this felt like an anime as far as the way the action was handled. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the flights and the fights, people getting thrown 100 yards. I'm like, this is like Dragon Ball Z, like brought to life for real. What the hell? This movie operates under the guise of what Chris Nolan did, and I've never seen a superhero movie of this stature, of like a character with this amount of power operate so seriously like this. Everything's taken seriously. It feels mythical. It feels larger than life. It's an alien invasion story that has real stakes, presents real danger. It really pushes Superman's moral compass as to how he operates in this world. I love this being the origin of Superman, showing us that he doesn't always know what to do. He's questioning things. I don't think we've ever seen that depicted so detailed in live action like we have here. Superman has always been seen as like an all-knowing character in the live action space. But here, he's vulnerable. You know, he went to a pastor wondering what he should do, asking his mom what he should do. I love Man of Steel. So at number 3 is where it sits. Now number 2 is Batman v Superman. This continues that question of how does Superman already know and why do people trust him? Both questions that I've always wondered that are beautifully explored to me. Yes, the movie is considered dark, but I just feel like this is what you get if Superman was in the real world. This is how people would act. You would have the folks that praise him and want to love him as a god, which they show. And I like how they even show Superman being so uncomfortable with being looked at as a god. He's just a guy trying to do the right thing, as quoted in the movie. And then you have other people who hate him and be like, should he be able to do all this stuff? Should he like collaborate with the government so we can know what to do? And then you have this older Batman who's just now seeing this and reacting to Superman, and he's already in a very bad state of his own, feeling the need to oppose him. It's just, there's so many themes in this film. It's like a political thriller in so many different ways. It's so poetic, it's so Shakespearean in the modern day. There are so many lines that you can pick apart. I just love this film to pieces, man. The cinematography is just beautiful. Arguably Zack's best shot film. And again, if you just look at this film as a whole, if you see the actors he chose, and this ain't Man of Steel, of course, you could tell they were gunning for something special. Like, they were gunning for award style performances. Nobody phoned anything in. Like, this is a drama. This is emotional performing at its highest level within a comic book movie. Again, under the guise of what the Dark Knight trilogy did, but with these larger than life heroes. You know, this is Batman in his fantastical nature under the guise of the Dark Knight. Superman the same way. These two button heads for an actual reason. And you have Lex in the middle of it, manipulating both of them to succeed at what he wanted to do. I'm aware that this is a movie low on people's list, but guess what? It's not low on mine. It's one of my favorite movies ever. Same with Man of Steel, one of my favorite movies ever, all-time list. So at number 2 is Batman v Superman. And of course, at number 1 is Zack Snyder's JL. I think that this is the magnum opus of the DCEU. This is the movie that you watch and be like, damn, so this is what the DCEU could have been. I'm saying it, yeah. You watch this movie, you fully understand Man of Steel and BVS and why things were done the way they were done. I've seen so many people say like, damn, this is what he was doing when that movie came out. I remember when BVS released and people was crushing it, I was like, bro, just wait till Justice League back in 2017. And this is the movie I was referencing, not knowing what they did. But you watch all 3 of these back to back, you see what Zack was doing, you see what he was building. And it's just a shame that we never got it. Like I said with BVS, when you look at the actors that he chose, especially when you look at the whole Justice League, right? He's not just choosing anybody. I mean, you gotta think about this, man. He had Oscar-winning writer, director, and actor Ben Affleck down to be Batman for 10 years. He was gonna do his own solo movie. That's part of what's in Zack Snyder's JL. I didn't say it in BVS, but he had the Jeremy Irons wanting to be Alfred. He had J.K. Simmons to play Gordon. All of these like different talent pools brought in here for one thing to make a great, epic superhero movie like we've never seen before. We are never gonna get a movie like Zack's JL. 4 hours of just epic action, emotionally heavy, but hopeful. There's just so many layers to this film that when you sit down and watch, it's almost incredible that Zack shot all of this within the period of time that he shot it in. So for him to get all of this stuff here and then add his little extra parts on to show what his DCEU would have been with the nightmare sequence and they gaze into the future, man. This is the DCEU magnum opus. Like when you watch this movie, no way possible where you're like, damn, I wonder what the other universe would have been like where Zack got to release this in 2017 and we saw that whole slate, because this is incredible. Every frame, beautiful, dope score. We've seen some things we've never seen in any movies. Flash running time back. All of the emotional beats with fathers and parents between Cyborg, who was the heart of the film, who just, oh, Ezra, performance here, just so sincere. Even Arthur is different here than he is in Aquaman. Like, he's stoic, he's not as jokey, he's not a bro at all. He is just a different person. Gal, again, doing another best performance as Diana. She always does her best when Zack is involved. Ben Affleck being the hopeful Batman from the blood-fueled one in BVS. Henry looking as brolic as ever, coming back just to, like, without even saying much, is felt throughout the entire movie. Dad, I just want you to know your son was one of them. Best of the best. Son, take your place amongst the brave ones. I'm your father twice over. She was made for flight, and so are you. What could have been? So that is my ranking of the DCEU films. Let me know in the comments what you think. How do you rank them? Be kind as usual. No hatred. I don't want to see this is all just a discussion. And farewell to the DCEU. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace. RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy.